Hello guys, and welcome to the actual first tutorial in which we're gonna build our first program and look at it in general. And basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna start our Visual Studio, and hopefully you got that installed already. So we're gonna double click on the Visual Studio 2015 and we're gonna let it launch, and I'm gonna wait for it to load, make sure it connects. And as you see guys, after installing, I actually created my login, and I'm logged in now. As you can see, my name right there. And technically, after you install your Visual Studio, after 30 days it will not let you use it anymore unless you create an account with Visual Studio. So you can use it without creating, but then after 30 days you basically will open up this program and it's gonna pop up the window for you. You don't have no longer access to unless you register with them, and it's free completely. You just give them your email, they verify, and you can create it. And the cool thing about it is that when you do that, every time you log in with on a different computer, and you log into Visual Studio, it will remember your settings. Okay, the settings that we did recently to change all that stuff. Well, it will save it for you. So every time you open a new at the new computer or install it somewhere else later, you log in and it will remember that. There's also other things. If you become familiar with their community, you can post comments and write suggestions. You will also need to create your Visual Studio account. Okay, so well, that's enough of that. Let's build our first program. Okay, so new project. You click right here under start. We're gonna create new project, and we're gonna make sure that we're under Visual C# right here, and there are Windows, and under Windows we're gonna be using our console application. Okay, there's so much stuff here, but right here there's a name, and we're gonna build our first program. Okay, and now right here is a solution name. It basically copies as you type, and we're gonna leave it as it is. And we're gonna leave the location there, and we're gonna click OK. And this is already exists for me, and for you you're probably not gonna, because I already created that. So I'm gonna create a first program copy. So I'm just gonna name it 1. Okay, so because I already have that project before. So I'm gonna click OK, and it's gonna run and create that project. Okay, and our first program is right here, and we didn't even type anything and give us all this stuff right here. Okay, and this is basics, and we don't even need all of this. We can technically just stop right here using, we can delete it all. We don't need that for our program, but we'll explain to you in next tutorial what those things do, and we're gonna leave them there for now. Okay, so the first things first, our program, we're not gonna talk about this until next tutorial, which I'm gonna be explaining all these things. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure our Visual Studio is running, compiling, and it's working properly before we start going into details. So what I want you to do is I want you to basically in this video follow me, copy what I'm typing, and see, make sure it's all working, and don't get stressed about all these things that you see on the screen. Okay, so in between these brackets, inside this statements right here under the main, inside these brackets, opening and closing brackets, right in between them, we're gonna type something to test our program. And what we're gonna type is we're gonna type console dot, and then we're gonna say write line, and copy just like I am with all this capitalization and everything, and then we're gonna open and close parentheses, and then we're gonna use double quotes, and inside we're gonna say hello world. Okay, then we're gonna go to the end after everything, and we're gonna put semicolon. Okay, and this is it. Our program is complete. Okay, very fancy program basically. And to run this program right now, there's two different ways. I'm gonna show you one for now. And if you go to debug right here, there's start debugging and start without debugging. And for now, we're gonna use start without debugging, or basically we're gonna use learn to use Control F5. Okay, later we will use another option, but for now it's gonna work. Okay, so I will say Control F5 to run, and let's see our first program. And look at that, beautiful hello world, exactly what we typed in here. Okay, so and it says press any key to continue, and we can just press a space button and it's disappeared. Okay, so before we move on to the next tutorial, here I want to point out basically two things, important things. Okay, first one is whatever we type in C# in Visual Studio right here, it's gonna be a case sensitive. Okay, and you and you will see me making these mistakes when I will forget to capitalize some letters, and it will not work. So if we change this right line to a small l, it will underline this with a red squiggly line telling us it doesn't understand what the heck we said. Okay, and basically right now it's kind of confusing. So how do you know which one is capital, which one's not? Well, for now we don't. You just do what I say, and later we will learn when things will make sense. Okay, so for now this is one thing. So everything that you saw here is capital and smaller. That's how it's gonna be. This obviously inside doesn't matter. We can type in this double quotes anything we want to display. Okay, and right here another thing that I want to point out, the second thing, is the semicolon at the end. And this is basically the first, and everybody who's in programming will make this mistakes at some point. In the end of the statement, not just a line, because there can be many different lines without them, but at the end of every statement, and we'll learn what statements are in lines later. But at the end of every statement, we will have the semicolon. And if you don't put it in, it will not let us run the program. It will underline, and it says, oh, semicolon is expected. Well, it's good for them to tell us. Okay, we can I'll be like, oh, thank you. And we can put that in there, right there. Okay, and if we were to write another one, if we would write exactly the same thing in here, and we would say something else, how are you? Okay, and then we go to the end and put another semicolon in there. Okay, and so when we run this right now, we should see these two lines printed, right? So Control F5, and look at that beauty. Both of them. Hello world, how are you? I'm doing great. Okay, so this is it for now, and in the next tutorial we'll talk about what these things mean and what they are. So I will see you in next tutorial.